By intensifying tariffs, the Trump administration has bet that economic pressure can force trading partners to bend to America's will. The logic is simple. As the world's largest economy, the U.S. has the leverage to set the terms of global commerce. Yet, far from strengthening America's position, this approach may accelerate its isolation. Economists, policymakers, and trade experts warn that tariffs are not only undermining U.S. economic interests, but also eroding its leadership in global trade. Bridgewater Associates billionaire founder Ray Dalio said in an interview with Bloomberg that it dramatically affected the psychology and attitude about the reliability of the United States. As the world shifts toward regional trade alliances and alternative multilateral platforms, the U.S. risks being left behind. What is the logic behind tariffs and what are their flaws? The Trump administration's tariff strategy is rooted in the belief that the U.S. can use its economic dominance to renegotiate trade deals on more favorable terms. By imposing tariffs on imports, the administration aims to protect domestic industries, reduce trade deficits, and pressure trading partners to concede to U.S. demands. However, this approach overlooks the interconnected nature of the global economy and the potential for retaliation. Yu-Qing Xing, a professor at the National Graduate School for Policy Studies in Tokyo, says in an interview with CGTN's Biz Talk.
I think America is the largest economy. It has all the leverage. So he wants to be alone or make America alone. He even, disregard the relationship with American ally.
This isolationist stance has strained relationships with traditional allies and trading partners who are increasingly looking for alternatives to the U.S.-led global trade system. How much do tariffs really cost the economy? Tariffs are essentially taxes on imports, and while they may provide short-term protection for domestic industries, they often lead to higher costs for consumers and businesses. A September 2019 study by Moody's Analytics found that the trade war during Trump's first term had already cost the U.S. economy nearly 300,000 jobs and an estimated 0.3% of real GDP. A 2019 report from Bloomberg Economics estimated that the trade war would cost the U.S. economy $316 billion by the end of 2020. According to a report of AFP, Maurice Obstfeld, a senior fellow at the Peterson Institute for International Economics, warns that Trump's tactics could lead to a retraction of global supply chains. He notes that countries might seek to decouple from the U.S. market if risk levels are deemed too high. Christine McDaniel, a senior research fellow at the Mercatus Center who previously served in the George W. Bush administration, expressed concerns about the potential disruptions that unilateral tariffs could cause in global trade. She questioned the relevance of the World Trade Organization if major economies, like the United States, can impose tariffs under the guise of national security concerns. So what are the ripple effects of U.S. tariffs on global trade? In an interview on CGTN's Biz Talk, Fernando Brancoli of the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro says the impact of tariffs extends beyond economics. It also undermines America's geopolitical influence.
If you hear Brazilian politics talking these days, most of them are saying, well, the U.S. is maybe not a reliable partner that it used to be.
This sentiment is echoed in other emerging markets where countries are increasingly turning to other regional powers for trade and investment. Professor Warwick Powell of Queensland University of Technology notes that even among traditional allies, the U.S. is losing credibility.
If the United States wants to backtrack, there's nothing that others can do to stop them from doing so. But let's not be concerned that somehow a backtracking America can put a halt to important global collaborations that can proceed regardless. Trading countries will develop workarounds and new institutions. They will build new multilateral platforms at a regional level that will facilitate an expansion of regional trade and capital flows to enable economic development to proceed.
As the U.S. retreats from its traditional role as a champion of free trade, other countries are forging new alliances. The European Union, for example, has signed trade agreements with Japan, Canada, and Mercosur, a South American trade bloc. These agreements reduce tariffs and create new opportunities for trade and investment. The Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, originally conceived as the Trans-Pacific Partnership with U.S. involvement, was abandoned by the Trump administration in 2017. The remaining 11 countries moved forward without the United States, creating a trade bloc that accounts for over 10% of global GDP. Another prominent example of this shift is the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, or RCEP, becoming the world's largest free trade agreement, accounting for about 30% of the global population and GDP. It has simplified trade regulations, reduced tariffs, and enhanced cooperation in areas such as intellectual property, e-commerce, and services. Is America's trade influence shrinking? The numbers tell a clear story. As Ruchir Sharma, chair of Rockefeller International, points out in an op-ed for the Financial Times, the world is moving on to trade without the United States.
That if you look at the 10 fastest growing trade corridors in the world, only 2 of those involve the US now, and 5 of those involve China. And China has clearly become the world's largest exporter, and also its share of global manufacturing is at a new high.
And America's share of global trade has steadily fallen since 2017.
So therefore, the US share in global trade has been declining over the past decade. It started off with Trump's first term, continued through Biden's term as well, because remember, he also carried on with the policies of tariffs against China and other countries. And now I think what we're going to see is that that movement is only going to accelerate and gain further pace under Trump's second term.
Meanwhile, regions like Asia, Europe, and the Middle East have seen their trade flows expand. In his analysis, Sharma observes that trade without America is increasingly becoming the norm. This shift is not just a passing trend, it's part of a broader realignment in the global trade landscape that has profound economic implications. One of the most striking trends in this global reconfiguration is the steady decline in the U.S.'s trade share, which has been particularly notable in the past 8 years. While most other countries have seen trade as a percentage of their GDP rise, the U.S. has experienced the opposite, with its share dropping to 18.4% in 2024. This drop, according to Sharma, reflects not only the immediate impacts of tariffs and protectionist policies, but also the broader transformation of global supply chains and trade networks. The changing dynamics have made it increasingly possible for countries to conduct significant trade without relying on American markets or goods. American companies have hundreds of billions of dollars in revenue abroad. As America turns more protectionist, could the overseas investments and sales of U.S. companies face retaliatory measures as their host countries are being hit by U.S. tariffs? And what are the long-term consequences of U.S. tariff policies? Globalization has become the prevailing trend of the modern economy, with nations increasingly interconnected through trade, investment, and shared industrial chains. Yet by alienating key trading partners and disrupting established global supply chains, the United States is undermining its own economic competitiveness and losing its ability to shape the rules of the global economy. If these policies continue, the United States could find itself increasingly sidelined in the broader currents of globalization.